You know that MAGA Republicans, Donald Trump, MAGA Mike Johnson are in trouble when you have both Marjorie Taylor Greene and Elise Stefanik attacking you. And when you have people like Troy Nehls, who walks around in Trump t-shirts while on the House floor is resigning. I mean, just take a look at what we learned today. Elise Stefanik is saying that MAGA Mike Johnson is just getting rolled by the House Democrats. She goes, Republicans have the House, the Senate, and the White House, yet the deep state is alive and well, with the speaker getting rolled by the House Democrats attempting to block my provision to require congressional disclosure when the FBI opens counterintelligence investigations. Then she made another post. I just walked out of a briefing on this issue this morning, confirming everything I posted yesterday. That, yes, in fact, the speaker is blocking my provision to root out illegal weaponization. Now, this follows Marjorie Taylor Greene saying, typical Republican men telling women to shut up and get back into the kitchen and fix me something to eat. F you in the sweetest, most Southern drawl I can enunciate. And as former MAGA influencers are posting, it's over. The whole MAGA psyop is over. It's America only, ride or die. Don't slide into my DMs whining about flipping on Trump. No, he flipped on us. Now, MAGA Mike Johnson was asked about Elise Stefanik continuing to post at him, and here's what he said. Play this clip.
I don't exactly know why Elise won't just call me. I texted her yesterday. She's upset that one of her provisions is not being made, I think, into the NDAA. I explained to her on a text message as soon as I heard this yesterday. I was campaigning in Tennessee, and I wrote her and I said, what are you talking about? This hasn't even made it to my level.
Okay, let's take a look right over here. MAGA Republican, or more of a moderate senator, if there is any, from Mississippi, Roger Wicker. Here's what he had to say about the war crimes being committed off the coast of Venezuela. Let's play it.
I've spoken to the Secretary of Defense, and will be speaking to the admiral that was in charge of the operation. The Secretary did indicate, which has now been in the news media, that there was a second attack.
Were there survivors who were killed in that second attack?
I don't have that information.
Do you worry that?
But I do think we'll get that information, and we're certainly going to have available to us.
And then you have a Republican state senator from Indiana echoing the words of a lot of Republican state legislators from Indiana who don't want to have that map there rigged by Donald Trump and are just disgusted at Trump continuing to use the R word to refer to his own political enemies. Here, play this clip of GOP State Senator Michael Boasek. Here, play.
You know, I think sometimes we confuse campaign rhetoric with the speech you use while you're actually in office. And while you get a little bit looser leash, so to speak, during a campaign season, now is the time to govern. And when it seems quite clear that we're isolating the population by the loose use of a slur, at some point you have to speak out and make sure that that's known.
I want to bring in Miles Taylor, who now runs an incredible group at Defiance.org. You all know Miles Taylor was a top Department of Homeland Security official under the first Trump administration back in 2018. He penned the anonymous op-ed in the New York Times. Anonymous, and it was you. You're not anonymous anymore with that. Trump wants to throw you in jail. He posts about you quite frequently because you were very outspoken against him during the first administration when it was clear to you that it was not a normal administration and it was heading in a fascist direction. You were one of the very first to speak out, and your new organization, Defiance, is all about linking the people with ways they can peacefully resist and protest this fascist regime. I want to talk about the group Defiance, but I want to show you these clips right here because, I mean, all of the red flags existed there when you got out during the first administration. And now you see people from all these different cross sectors, whether it's an Elise Stefanik, a Marjorie Taylor Greene, a Wicker, you name it, with all kind of different views. But somehow we're stayed the line in this Trump craziness. And now you're seeing the fracture. What do you make of this moment, Miles?
Well, look, I derive some optimism out of it, my friend, especially when you compare it to the first 6 months of this year. I mean, the beginning of this year, I think, was scary for a lot of people, regardless of your party affiliation, you saw a country that really was kowtowing to the president. And even people who had been speaking out about his lawlessness previously, warning about his reelection, warning about what might happen, they went silent. Whole industries were accepting White House intimidation. And now, Ben, you are starting to see the cracks. I don't want to say it's a sea change. It's not a sea change yet, but you are starting to see the cracks emerge, and from within the MAGA movement itself. And I'll tell you why this is happening. This is a consequence of the president mounting such a sweeping revenge campaign. You know, people have said this is a whole of government revenge campaign because he's using every agency that he can to go after his enemies. I think that's wrong. I think that's an understatement. I think it is a whole of society revenge campaign because the president has gone after almost every single sector of society where he has enemies, from education to law to business. Nothing has been left untouched. But the consequence of that is when you go after everyone, you make enemies out of people who weren't even planning on being your enemies. And that's why you saw even a Marjorie Taylor Greene. You and I, Ben, could not have constructed a more perfect exemplar of a Trump loyalist than Marjorie Taylor Greene. So when you see someone like that turning against Donald Trump, it's sending you a signal, is that his revenge campaign has swung so far and so wide that he's making enemies out of people he did not intend to. And we know from history that that is actually a very effective way to start to counter fascists, is you turn their actions against them and they unwittingly recruit their opposition. And that's what we are starting to see happen with Donald Trump.
Now, Miles, you were recruited into the first Trump administration from John Kelly, and I'm not sure who Trump wants to throw in jail sooner right now, Kelly or yourself, but the point being there was guardrails. John Kelly was a very serious person with a background in the military, as prestigious as you can possibly get. You had people like you with backgrounds as prestigious as you can get in the various stages of your career. Obviously, Kelly was just at a different stage than you were. You and I are about the same age. But there were people there who were smart, who were serious, and who thought that there was a way to conduct business with normalcy. And there was lots of pushback to Trump's craziest, most dangerous and fascist ideas, which restrained some of it. You know, now with the Supreme Court's ruling saying that there's absolute immunity, those guardrails are off. Like, maybe just remind some of our viewers and listeners of the types of things that he wanted to do, if you could tick that off, because in your book, you've always outlined some of the stuff. And I just always, you know, people would go, oh my God, that's so crazy. But like, those are the things right now that he's actually, you know, doing. He wakes up, I'm going to pardon the biggest narco drug trafficker while saying I'm going to invade Venezuela at the same time for narco drug trafficking. I'm just going to release Chapo's guy right there, Juan Orlando Hernandez. And you know what? While I'm at it, I'm just going to kill random boats off the coast of Venezuela. While I'm at it, I'm going to send Witkoff to Russia, meet with Putin a few times, launder Russia's plan. So go over that with us, because I think it's an important.
Yeah. Well, I would say, Ben, it's almost everything that he's doing right now. And I don't say this to toot my horn, but I went back a couple of months ago and did an assessment of the predictions that I laid out in my last book. It was called Blowback, a Warning to Save Democracy from Trump's Revenge. And my whole focus in writing that thing a few years ago was to paint a picture of a second Trump administration. I spoke to 100 of my former colleagues in the Trump administration from almost every department and agency. And I asked them one question: tell me what he wanted to do in a first term that he was not able to do that you think he will do in a second term. And let's paint that picture for people. Again, not in a self-aggrandizing way of here's what the axis of adults prevented, but to warn people, here's what he will do, because none of us will be in that second administration. And when I did that assessment a couple of months ago, Ben, I found that 70% of the things that I had predicted in that book, Trump had already carried out. That's things like what we're seeing with the blowing up of the boats in the Caribbean. This was something that was premeditated 7 years ago. Stephen Miller at the White House was asking us whether the president could use missile strikes against boats with unarmed civilians in those boats. He actually asked us that. We were on the way back from a trip in Key West where we had taken the president down to a counter-drug command post, and Stephen Miller wanted to know, can we blow up these boats? Now, Stephen Miller denied that ever happened, which I find very funny, because now Stephen Miller is reportedly the one behind the policy to do what? Go blow up boats with apparently unarmed civilians in them. So those types of policies were prevented in the first term. And I can understand the annoyance people felt with this idea in the first term of a so-called axis of adults that were preventing Trump from doing illegal things. It's a group of unelected bureaucrats should not be running the country. The president runs the country. But the mistake here was that people felt like a deep state, or Trump tried to convey the idea that a deep state was preventing him from doing the things he wanted. That's not true. None of us had the power to prevent Donald Trump from doing the things he wanted. All we had the power to do is prevent him from doing illegal things, or tell him not to do illegal things, or refuse to implement them. And what you are seeing now is the consequence of having people around him who are willing to say yes to illegal things. And I think that has come to a head with the news this week about the boat strikes, and with the warning the week before that from 6 Democratic lawmakers that illegal orders would be coming and people have a right and a responsibility inside government to refuse them. And look, I'll make one prediction, Ben. Unfortunately, I do want to be optimistic about the growing defiance we are seeing in this country, the growing resistance. But the thing I'm not optimistic about is this revenge campaign ending. The president's efforts to go after people and institutions are only just beginning. And like we saw in the first Trump administration, year 1 was all about laying the foundation. Year 2 was all about execution. And I do worry that 2026 will be when really things come off the rails.
And that's where people want to take agency and know what can we do, which is why I think Defiance, your new organization, comes at the perfect time, linking people to causes, to things that they can do to actually get involved, because there's nothing worse sometimes than just doom scrolling without having an ability to do something about it. And so what we always try to do here on the MeidasTouch Network is say, here's what's going on, be fully informed so you're not being propagandized and lied to and defrauded. And now here's what you can do. So talk to us about Defiance and why you started this and why it's so important right now.
Well, Ben, I always try to be as real as possible with folks. And the real story here is I don't want to be doing this. This is not what I want to be doing right now. I had retreated from public life, built a business, started a family, and wanted to stay away from all of this forever. But when Trump came after me in April with this investigative order, it blew up everything in our lives. It destroyed our business. It resulted in security threats against our family. Everything that was normal about our lives got upended. And my wife and I faced a choice, which was either do what most people in our lives were recommending, and they had good intentions for us in recommending that we lay low and hope it blew over because Trump would go after other people, and he did, or to fight back. And credit to my wife, her point was, if we don't do anything, if we don't fight back, then we are going to make it that much easier for him to attack other people and other families, and we will show them that the intimidation is working. So we have made the decision to fight back every single day until this is over. But as you note, Ben, I kept getting the question, like you get the question from a lot of people, what can I do? And at first it was folks who wanted to be helpful to us as a family, make sure we got the legal defenses we needed. But more than that, it was people saying, I want to get involved. I want to fight back. That was really encouraging to me. And so a few weeks ago, we had this idea to go launch basically what we call a Club for Courageous Americans, Defiance.org, where people could come together, and once a week, we feature incredible organizations they can get involved in to fight back. Existing groups doing remarkable work around the country to defy Donald Trump, and specifically to defy his abuses of power. And what we do is folks pay whatever they want in a membership fee, and then we pool those membership fees and we take action. We support those groups around the country. We back whistleblowers who are exposing misconduct in the executive branch. We push back against the president's corporate enablers. We do real things so people don't feel like every day all they are doing is doom scrolling. They actually have some agency. And that's personally very important to me, because the point at which this year the tide turned for us in our household is when we stopped navel gazing, when we stopped having self-pity for our lives having been upended by this guy, and we decided to fight back. That actual word defiance is the thing that was like our lodestar as a family. And so literally Hannah said, well, why don't you go look and see if that domain name is available? And I did a search and I was like, oh my gosh, it is. And like all great ideas, Ben, it starts with finding a really good domain name that you want to build a project out of. I'm just half joking about that. But we find that domain. We thought we got to build something around this. We got to help mobilize people. We've only existed for a month and close to 100,000 Americans have joined us. And I'm thrilled about that. And there's a lot more to come.
Well, that's why we called ourselves MeidasTouch, because of course everybody knows that you spell Meidas, M-E-I-D-A-S. But I want to tell everybody the key thing that I love about Defiance is when you do the spotlight where you gift grants to the organizations that the people who are the members care most about. And so one of the things that you do is you pool all of those funds, you give the grants to those organizations, and then people can see how, you know, their support is actually having the impact that they want it to do. And you're across all of the socials, so everybody should subscribe. It's at defiance.org. Make sure people subscribe on YouTube as well to @defiance.org and to the Defiance YouTube channel. And I love just the breakdowns of the actions that people take, your weekly roundup. So I'm really grateful for the work that you're doing, Miles. And anything you want to say before we head out?
Well, I appreciate you, my friend. I mean, look, I'll just say to folks, the fun thing about this is it feels like pro-democracy Oprah for us. Is like every week we get to empower a really, really incredible organization or group. But beyond that, Ben, we only choose groups to support each week that are also going to give our members options to take personal action if they want to. So we, like you said, bundle up the majority of those member proceeds, support those groups to do incredible things to push back against Trump's abuses of power, and then give our members the opportunity to be personally involved if they want to. So this is the type of thing, it's the type of optimism that we all need right now. And if there's one tiny thing I can plug, Ben, it's that we do have a very fun holiday activation. 100% of it goes to the pro-democracy cause. If people go to defiance.org and they go to the swag section, they can buy a constitution to send to members of Congress, and it's going to have a note stapled on it that says, you swore an oath to this and not to Donald Trump. And we're going to send those, we're going to deliver those in person to Republican pro-Trump members of Congress in early January. So I'm going to circle back with you about that, Ben, because there might be a fun way to involve you guys in that. We've already had thousands and thousands of people purchase these constitutions to remind members of Congress what they swore an oath to. And again, all of those proceeds go into the pro-democracy fight. So would love to have people involved in that.
Miles Taylor, you all know him. The new organization is Defiance, defiance.org. Thanks, Miles, for the work you're doing.
Thanks, Ben.
Everybody hit subscribe. Let's get to 6 million subscribers.
Want to stay plugged in? Become a subscriber to our Substack at MeidasPlus.com. You'll get daily recaps from Ron Filipkowski, ad-free episodes of our podcast, and more exclusive content only available at MeidasPlus.com.